Thank you very much. We were in session 11. Session 11, we want to see some of the relationships that exist between public opinion and participation. The previous sessions have given us a firm background of the concept of political participation. And in this session, we take a critical look at public opinion and political participation. This is, since it is one of the ways by which citizens express their opinions about the political system and its processes. Thus, in this system, or in this session, our emphasis is going to be on what is public opinion and its role in the state. So the session addresses two major topics: defining public opinion and, of course, looking at polling and so on. So public opinion. The slides, the reading lists are shown on the screen. Let's look at this quotation. Public opinion consists of those opinions held by private persons which governments find it prudent to heed. That's important. Public opinion, as stated elsewhere in this course, political culture and public opinion are closely linked. They are generally formed through the same influences, and they merge together in a way that makes it very difficult to judge where one leaves off and the other begins. It must however be noted that just as public opinion is not synonymous with political culture, it is not to be confused with individual opinion. Public opinion invariably refers to political and social issues, not private matters or tastes. So take note. We are also very much interested in Jeff Berry's definition. And according to Berry, and others, public opinion is simply the collective attitude of the citizens on a given issue in question. So it can be an opinion on the president distributing money. It can be an opinion on the status of opposition leader. It can be an opinion about the declaration of HIPIC. It can be an opinion on whether indeed the city depreciation, among others, and the health of a currency, and so on. So take note. It is an implicit verbal response or answer that an individual gives in reply to a particular stimulus in which some general question is raised. Thomas Mastard and Peter Scoutin, for instance, have argued that public opinion is the aggregate of citizen preferences and a judgment that really influence the decisions and policies of government officials. So what in fact they are inferring is that really public opinion affects the government, and invariably, even though we are saying that government do not necessarily pander to the dictate, the whims and caprices of the public, they are nonetheless influenced in one way or the other by the opinion of the public. So in democratic state, public opinion obtains legitimacy from the fact that government is responsible to those who have elected it. Public opinion derives its agency from the fervent desire of most representatives and aspiring candidates to be elected. So when governments want to be elected, when governments want to really govern well, and they think that they want to, their actions and inactions must impact on the people, they tend to be responsive to the desires, the needs and aspirations of the people. And that is what gives it that currency that it deserves. Public opinion does not necessarily imply a strong, clear, united conviction of the masses. No. There are even subjects on which the majority of the people are united in that opinion. And when that is the case, public opinion has mighty force indeed. In other words, when the general public believes that a particular policy preference must be pursued, governments are inevitably cowed into submission. But it doesn't mean that the public will almost always agree. In most cases, public opinion involves several groups of people. Each group's view, perhaps in conflict with those of others, plus perhaps a large number who are even undecided or who think that the matter is not even important to them and they may not be interested at all. So on most subjects, really, public opinion is an array of diverse ideas, really, and attitudes concerning political and social issues that can change fairly quickly. So public opinion invariably tend to be very transient. They change very fast. And so that is the point that you need to do. So all over the world, what government tend to do is to manage the public opinion, so that the public policies that issue out of the government will really be those ones that will enhance the interest and dignity of the people. So public opinion differs from mere opinion in that the former must involve a judgment that has some bearing on the direction of public policy, not just... So in a democracy, public opinion is so universally held and sharply defined that elected officials cannot ignore it or even contradict it. And sometimes successfully, if you are able to follow it successfully, it even gives you some ambience to be able to govern effective, some leverage to govern well. In most cases, public opinion comprises a mood of dissatisfaction and anxiety, approval regarding some issues of national importance. It's not about the socks that you wear or the shoe that you wear. It's about maybe school feeding program. It can be the introduction of academic facility user fees in a university, or it's about maybe students being asked to pay utility bills, among others. These are critical national issues over which public opinion perhaps will feed into the overall policy decisions of government. So even though public opinion provides the context within which political leaders take decisions, it rarely dictates the control of those decisions. Sometimes you don't have to pander because the majority is not always right. So regarding most issues, measuring public opinion and gauging its influence can be very difficult and sometimes very elusive. It can be a pipe dream, if you like. In democracies, 5 basic generalizations can be distilled or can usually be held. Usually hold in these ages. So let's look at those distinctions or those generalizations. That a significant number of citizens usually hold preferences regarding particular issues that they are not simply indifferent to them. The second issue is that is stable and has remained relatively fixed over a period of time. That's something that you need to be interested in. That it is unevenly distributed or sometimes even lopsided in a particular direction. That it is intensely felt by citizens and that perhaps it's salient, meaning that the citizens regard the issue or policy in question as important compared to others. That these are the issues over which people will have opinions over. It's not about any mundane, routine, sometimes irrelevant and some useless issues that are critical. And that's why I gave so critical examples. So the most vexed question that arises regarding public opinion is the extent to which public leaders ought to be dependent on citizens' opinion when making important policy decisions. Such a concern is heightened by relations or the realization that in a democracy, public opinion often is less the result of rational judgment or more of a collective feeling or collection of feeling, guesses, emotions made on the basis of very scanty information. So sometimes, if you're going to depend on public opinion to really govern, you may err, and that can undermine the stability of the state. It's important, but it's not something you don't necessarily have to pander. Factors that shape public opinion, really. What are some of the factors that shape public opinion? Public opinion is usually shaped by factors such as educational background of individuals. So sometimes when elite talk, the leaders listen. Religion and religion of origin or region of origin. The age, gender, the ethnic background, all these things shape public opinion. It is generally argued that public opinion arises in response to specific issues and develops in the following manner. An issue is injected into society by some concrete social event, like the presentation of a new VAT bill. In 1995, a new VAT bill was introduced, and that generated a lot of debate in the political system. That can create a situation like that. The event stirs interest and discussion among the primary groups. If it's the introduction of HIPIC, or if Ghana decide to go for IMF loans, or if there is something that the Black Stars goes to play football in Brazil and they want their money airlifted to them. That will generate a lot of interest. An opinion leader emerges and his idea becomes the preferred or the focal point for discussion. That's important. The ideas are simplified and generalized, and in this form are transmitted to other parts of the society, leading to widespread or generalized discussion on an issue, and so on and so forth. So it's a very important thing, and that is why the politicians normally will want to set the public agenda and even plant people within the society so they can manage the public opinion in their favor. So we talk about attitude towards the issues are formed mainly from contact with others and are heavily influenced by the expectation that the individual hold about the individual's or behavior of others. If you are an influential person in society, what you say can matter, can mean a lot, and your supporters can hold on to it as maybe the prevailing opinion. These attitudes are usually judged in light of experience until they reinforce the original expectation, leading to strong feelings about the issue. An action occurs and based on the expectations and attitudes that have been mobilized in this way. So public opinion will then dissipate. Sometimes it comes when it goes. And it's like hot water. It will time, it gets cold and becomes pales into insignificance, something that you need to be conscious of. So if you are advising your political party, you should be interested in how they can manipulate or sometimes manage, and if you like, massage public opinion. So the role of public opinion. Public opinion is very difficult to define. In a democracy, elections provide formal means of popular control of government, but only very crude expression of public opinion. We're going to vote. Anytime we are going to vote, it's more or less like a vote of confidence or no confidence. It gives you a sense of whether the people like the government or not. And so on. An election can only register the verdict of the voters on officials' overall performance. Really is one issue so important that an election writes on its own. Now, if opinion is running in one direction, it really can dictate or it can shape the decisions of public opinion or political leaders invariably. And that is why in some cases you have to pander to the whims and caprices of the citizenry. But I argued and take note that the majority is not always right. And so if you are a leader and you are only going to follow public opinion, you may drive the citizens into a ditch. In many cases, public opinion is created, not followed. You understand? Sometimes by the executive, they create that. It's artificial creation. If elections provide only a foggy outlet for public opinion, the executives often lead rather than follow the will of the people. The more direct participation of interest groups by the concerned citizen and so on. Sometimes the lobbyists and others are telling you, or sometimes policy analysts are telling you the prevailing opinion and whether you can go by it and so on and so forth. In democracies, which really will provide freedom of expression and dissent in bold and sometimes dramatic form, strategies for bringing grievances to public attention can be very effective in exciting widespread sympathy for minorities who are denied certain rights. And so within the politics of the state, you must have people who can spin and turn even very bad stories into making bad stories very good stories, especially for the government. That is why the diversity of or the plurality that we have as far as the media is concerned is good for you and I, the citizens. Because if the media is gagged and controlled by the government, what it turns out is that they control public opinion, or they can shape the color and content of public opinion. In non-democratic states where dissent is frowned upon, the effective mobilization of public opinion against the government can bring it down. So when public opinion is very high, it can undermine the government. Mahatma Gandhi's resort to non-violence means, helped him mobilize public opinion to win independence for India in 1947, for instance. So it depends on the strength of your argument and how people see the utility in the particular position that you hold, the value that you hold, whether what you are saying really makes sense and whether it resonates with the broad masses. Any government that resort to excessive use of force will certainly be toppled if public opinion is mobilized against it. So anytime people decide to mobilize public opinion against the government is worried. The government panics. So it's very important. Take note. We need to we look at the second issue where we are talking about polling, opinion polls and so on. All government makes some effort to assess and analyze public opinion. In democratic states, public opinion on a variety of issues is gauged and discussed freely, and efforts to identify the majority opinion on any particular issues are undertaken, not only by public agencies, but also by some political parties, private candidates, sometimes the media, and a variety of even think tanks, universities, research institutions, and other scholars. The idea is to look at what is really the prevailing opinion and whether indeed a particular policy prescription is the preferred policy, and so on. And so any effort to gauge the attitude of the public by means of representative sample is really called a survey or a poll. So published polls, particularly in election years, are prominent in today's political landscape. The only problem we have in Africa, in Ghana for that matter, is that some of these polls are seriously doctored. They are massaged. And therefore, they tend to, depending on who is conducting it, usually the outcomes or the results are normally doctored and massaged. Somebody will give a very weird, there's Nado NDC will win or Mahama will win by 70%. Somebody say, Nanado is going to win by 66%. These are all weird. They will never happen. And these things are weird and depend on who is organizing it. Perhaps sometimes they have their own conclusions and they go to the field to look for information to justify the conclusions. They are highly unacademic. And we don't want to live by that. And sometimes opinion polling is even affected by how candid the people are. In other jurisdictions, in the West, for instance, where people tend to be a bit, they are able to express themselves freely, they're able to talk about their opinions, they're able to deal with and state their political positions without fear or favor. You can have exit polls, which normally will mirror really the true state of affairs. So determine how the public stands on a particular issue, we organize opinion polling, canvassing citizens for their opinion. This can become the most popular and sometimes accurate means of defining and charting changes in public opinion. The ubiquity of opinion polling serves as a testament of their usefulness to policy makers and so on. So all governments, where am I? Okay. So in developed democracies, public opinion polling has grown increasingly sophisticated or have become very sophisticated. Most polls asking whether they approve or maybe oppose of a statement or a policy. Some polls ask citizens to identify their preferences for among various policy alternatives. Through such polling techniques, researchers predict the actions of a large population based on the answers given by relatively a small number of respondents. Because we are dealing with time, resource constraints, and therefore you cannot. There have been times our own public officials have discredited some opinion polling, not because they are unscientific, but they have suggested that the sampling sizes have been small, and some of them have even gone to suggest that the person or the institution should have interviewed about 11 million people. Very unrealistic, unattainable. It tells you that they themselves do not know what the opinion polling is. So the cheapest methodology or method is what we call mail out ballots to a sample and then tally the replies. Invariably, people who are involved enough to make the effort to reply will not be representative of the sample. When you mail out, in Ghana where people go to the post office once a month, you can be sure that the response rate will be very, very low. Some people even do telephone, and they can avoid this problem, but it's really established sufficient rapport to achieve really candid responses. Telephone, when people are really talking on phone, they tend not to be too candid. Of course, they tend to be candid because then the face-to-face interview where maybe your presence can have influence on the person's response will not be there. So the most dependable method will be the face-to-face, which is sometimes also very expensive. And for the reliable results, we expect the interviewer should be carefully selected and carefully trained, so that the people will not go and sit under mango trees and fill the questionnaire for you. Garbage in, garbage out. That's what will result. But even this method has its own drawbacks. There will be interviewer bias and all of that. Your presence can influence somebody to rather speak the truth or perhaps not even speak the truth at all. Some of the techniques, as I said, in the preferred method of polling, random sampling of citizens is done from a population, and you do that random. So if a population of maybe 10,000, you can check about 100 of them. If it's really representative, you can then generalize, for the conclusions. The goal of really opinion polling or survey is to get candid replies from a representative sample at a minimum cost. And the problem of cost has still not been overcome. So it makes the face-to-face interviews very expensive, even though in our part of the world it's the preferred method. Because if you post, as I said, you post, how are you going to get telephone numbers of people? How representative would the sample be? And how would people even be candid in their responses, among others? So the importance of public opinion polling. Opinion polling contribute to the democratic process in several ways. They bring into the public realm the voices of people who would otherwise not be heard. That's of those who it gives voice to the voiceless, as it were. They are the only form of participation, apart from the ballot box itself, in which all count for one and none for more than one. So when you interview me and you interview whoever you interview, it's just one. So it puts some floor of equality underneath everybody, and it makes the conclusions quite solid, quite scientific. They are also based on direct contact by interviewers with the public, and they get behind the group leaders who claim to speak on behalf of the members. Polls enable politicians to keep in touch with the public mood or popular mood, and polls give some insight into the reasons for election results. If you want to look at what people's reaction is to maybe the concept of doomsday in this country, you get a sense of what people think about this whole concept of doomsayism, which became very popular in Ghana, until recently. In election campaigns, polling has become more or less future-oriented. They are future-oriented. Used largely to determine what position candidates ought to take, or how positions are to be advanced, or what political advertisement will project positive candidate images. Unfortunately, in our country, politicians don't want to invest in opinion polling. They sometimes will invest in people who want to come and tell them what they want to hear. Highly unscientific. If you want to be candid, then you need to invest so that you can get the results. And that can help you refocus your campaign and change maybe your lyrics or your jingles or maybe your style among. Opinion polls can also help to measure the popularity of the president and determine how much political influence the chief executive can wield within the state. If you want to look at you test the popularity of the president, you can do that. The Americans, for instance, do not wait for their president to die before they evaluate them. Once you assume power, they begin to evaluate your performance. So in short, public opinion polls oils the wheels really of any democracy, and you need to be interested in that. Opinion polls construct and even shape public opinion at the same time as they measure it. So the opinion polls themselves shape public opinion. In fact, they are mutually reinforcing. They influence each other. Polls may also be inaccurate because of lack of candor or on the part of some respondents. Some respondents, you ask them which party you voted for. They sometimes want to judge where you vote, and they will give you the answer correspondingly. So it's difficult. Even though most polls are premised on anonymity, voters, for instance, may not always respond truthfully about how they intend to vote, especially if they believe that their preferred candidate may be perceived as unpopular or irresponsible. You ask people who they want to vote for, they are not interested. In this country, if there are some women who will tell you that they will wait for their husband to come before they will answer your questions. Highly, some of the attitude that cannot really support democracy at all. So some of the limitations are continuing. It's a major limitation of the polls, especially for election forecasting. It is the unpredictability of voter turnout. Sometimes when you sample, it is very difficult. It even may turn out that the people that you sample may not even be there to vote at all, or there may be some development after the polls that will affect. Don't forget that human beings, You and I are the most variable of all the variables. You cannot determine whether somebody will change his mind, even when the day of even voting. Public opinion is also very volatile in the sense that it is able to change quickly, under the impact of events. That's what I was talking about. In short, nothing is permanent in public opinion. Volatility must therefore be taken into consideration. Very volatile, very transient. Finally, a survey that is accurate in its overall results cannot assure the same degree of reliability when broken down into finer categories. To get accurate reading, the sample must be large enough to average out any quirks within the system. It's important the sample must be representative. The sample size and the process of selecting the sample must be as scientific as possible, so that the conclusion that you distill from that smaller group can be used overall to at least to generalize for the larger population. This brings us to the end of this session. We deals with, as I said, deal with the opinion polling. Very important public opinion and opinion polling. Very critical ingredients in any democracy. If you really want to govern and if you want to advise your political party, it is important that the public opinion be a measure of your success, among others. And then find ways by which opinion polls or public opinion can be in favor or can be behind your government or your president. It is important for sustenance. It's important for stability. Thank you very much.